Are you in a toxic relationship? What do you do if you are?
By definition, a toxic relationship is a relationship characterized by behaviors on the part of the toxic partner that are emotionally and not infrequently physically damaging to their partner.
Keep in mind that it takes two individuals to have a toxic relationship.
To shed light on toxic relationships, the signs that you're in one, and what to do to get out of one, we invited David Lawson, founder of Finding the Light Counselling and Coaching, to our show. David has worked as a counsellor in Bundaberg, Queensland for 18 plus years.
So if you want to know more about toxic relationships so that you can ensure that you know what to do if you or someone you know is in one, listen to this episode. Welcome to Founders Connect podcast. We help lifestyle entrepreneurs to grow their business online and create a happier marriage.
Did you know that approximately 45% of marriages end up in divorce and 65% of all startups fail due to founder conflicts? Well, we're here to change that.
Each week we bring you an inspiring guest and practical tips to help you with business, relationships, and sustainable living. Now let the fun begin! Hi, I'm Cindy Pham.
And I'm Anthony Chansamuth.
And we're from Founders Connect.
And today we are talking about how to know if you are in a toxic relationship and what do you do if you are in one. And to really talk about this topic, we brought on someone who's got a lot of experience understanding relationships. We've got David Lawson, who works as a counsellor in Bundaberg, Queensland, and has been doing so for 18 years and going. David's passion is really for helping people his passion for people has led him to complete a social science degree with a major in counselling and a master of counselling. And David's noticed that many people are affected by relationship breakdown, and that's led him into completing a coaching certificate and really helping many people work through different challenges. David's also a clinical member of Psychotherapy and Counselling Federation of Australia with Level 4 membership and in the Australian Counselling Association, and an associate certified coach with the International Coach Federation. A lot of experience going on there. Finding the Light, which is David's business, was started 6 years ago to offer an alternative approach to counselling by being client-focused, trauma-informed with a recovery focus. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Love it. So, Cindy, why don't we kick off with learning a bit more about who David is as a person?
Exactly. So my first question is, from the scale of 1 to 10, how weird are you?
Probably 9 out of 10. 10 being really weird.
9 out of 10, why is that?
Well, there's not too many men do what I do. In another life, I was a farmer, so there's not too many farmers become counsellors, I guess. I just like what I do. I'm weird because I'm a bald, fat guy, bearded, bald, fat guy in their 50s, and I just like helping people. I guess most people my age are wanting to slow down, but that's not the story of my life. I seem to be getting busier as I get older, and I guess I haven't met too many people like me, so that's why I think I'm probably weird.
I love that. That's good.
Yeah.
When you said, fat, bold, 50-year-old, I'm like, you're Santa Claus. About the hair.
That's the problem.
That's right. Okay. Fantastic, David. So if you had all the time and money in the world, what would you be doing?
I would be doing exactly what I've been doing today. I wouldn't do anything differently. Instead of probably working an obscene amount of hours in a day, in a week, I might work a few less hours. I might spend a bit more time with my wife, but end of the day, I wouldn't really change anything that I do. Seriously, I love what I do. I love helping people, and I don't see, if you like what you do, why would you do anything different?
Exactly. That's a great tip there, hey?
Spot on.
Yeah.
So what's your favourite quote, David?
My favourite quote
Yes.
is seek first to understand, from Stephen Covey's book. So he talks about seek first to understand. So try and understand where the other person's coming from. And if you can do that, you still may not agree with them, but at least you'll have a better discussion, because it'll be, it should end up in the category of let's agree to disagree, but hey, I really learned something from you. So I think it's really useful to seek first to understand the other person.
That's so relevant in the context of the conversation we're having today. Just because I'm curious, how long have you and your wife been together?
18 and a half years, happily married.
Congratulations.
Ooh.
Long-term singles. I was 36 when I got married and she was 40 when she got married. So we're long-term singles.
Brilliant. And who's been your greatest mentor, like whether it's in your life or in your career, and what did you learn from them?
I don't know. I probably take bits and pieces from all over the place. I guess my greatest learnings have come from losing my own skin and blood. I think you learn from getting your hand burnt. You know, I think that's how I learned. I'm not very good at computers, but by jingos, I know what you don't do with computers anymore because I've just about done everything that you probably could do to a computer except bounce it off a floor. I've done everything else. I've deleted stuff that I didn't think should be there, and I had to go and get it reinstalled. And so I think for me, my greatest learning is actually losing some skin and bone, losing a bit of blood, and that's how I've learned.
So continuing on with that theme, what's been the greatest obstacle you've overcome in your life?
4 years ago, I come within minutes of dying from a snake bite. And let's just say there were 7 miracles that happened that day. I had an 82-year-old father with me who had dementia, and he was walking around the streets where I live trying to find someone in the middle of the day to come and see what was wrong with me to give me first aid. And he was really confused. And then the ambos came and they thought it was a drug overdose. They refused to concede that it was a snake bite, so they weren't in a hurry to take me to hospital, and literally of errors, things that happened. So, yeah.
So just because I've never been bitten by a snake, but how much time do you have to get that fixed before it's fatal?
ASAP, but mine, I think it was 90 minutes before I got to the hospital. And I had an allergic reaction to the venom of the snake, which meant that I passed out within about a minute of getting bitten. I passed out. I had an allergic reaction and I started carrying on like someone who was on ice.
That is intense.
And of course, when you get bitten by something, you're not supposed to move around. But I was bouncing up and down like I was on steroids. I was bouncing around, which is the worst thing you could do. But that's what the poison from the snake did to me. It made me carry on like a pork chop.
Wow.
Wow. That's on top of the allergy, isn't it? The allergy made it happen as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, is that common in Bundaberg to have snakes running around, or is that where were you?
Yeah. I was at home, but there's probably someone gets bitten this time of year. There's probably at least one person a week gets bitten by a snake in this town. I happened to be the first snake bite victim for the snake season when I got bitten. And so when I woke up in emergency, I had 20 or 30 doctors and interns all around me because I was the first snake bite of the year. They decided to get everybody in to say, well, this is what happens when someone's got a snake bite. And I was the lab rat, so to speak. They were just wanting to show all the interns that someone with a snake bite. So, yeah.
That's incredible. Well, I'm glad you're here to share the story.
Yeah, and you helped the interns there. Right?
Yes.
That's just very giving of you to use your situation as a learning and educational, device.
I wasn't going anywhere quick, put that way. I wasn't going anywhere quick, I can assure you.
All right. So let's transition from, you said you started off being a farmer. How did you go from farmer to counsellor? What was the transition period and how did that become? What happened there?
I just got sick and tired of going through droughts. And if it wasn't a drought, it was a flood. Mm. And I actually started on the telephones with the crisis line. Mm. And one day somebody who was coming in to relieve me to do the next shift was doing some study. And a lot of people were doing study. I said, so what are you studying? And they said, I'm doing financial counselling. Really? I don't mind working with numbers. And I ended up doing the course and working as a financial counsellor, so helping people to not go bankrupt or helping people to go bankrupt. And then after a while, I realised that I really liked working with people and I wanted to know more about, because my skills of working therapeutically were very basic. And so I decided to put myself through uni. So at 43, I put myself through uni.
Never too old to learn.
No, that's right. In fact, I was one of the young ones. When I did my Masters, I started my Masters when I was 48. I was probably one of the youngest people in the room.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Most of the class were in their 50s.
There you go.
There you go.
Cool. All right. So I know client work is confidential, but what are some of the best stories of counselling work that you've done that you're really proud of? Like, some of the situations that you've been able to help people with.
I had 2 mums text me about 2 years ago and said, Dave, I just want to let you know we're pregnant. Mm. Really, because I'd worked with them and their spouses for a considerable amount of time. So in 2017, my town had the population increased by 2 because of the work I'd done with their mum and dad. Now, there's probably more births out there, but these are 2 that people actually come to me and thank me for.
That's amazing. What did they come to you with initially? Like, what was the symptom?
Oh, they were about to kill each other.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
The relationship was really in a bad way. And in fact, the one couple there, they actually were late for their last appointment. And I said, oh, you guys okay? You seem to be not here. Oh, we're well. And it came out that they decided to have sex before they came to the session. And midst of having sex, they were late for the session. And I said, oh, so is this a common thing? They said, well, put it this way, David. Yeah, in the 9 months before we saw you, we never had sex once. And in the last 14 days, we've had sex 15 times. Not that we're counting, David. And I thought, oh, wow. So that's a big turnaround from no sex for 9 months to sex 15 times in 14 days, and we're not counting. So that was really good. I thought that was really good.
That's excellent, actually, isn't it?
Well done. You're the love doctor.
Exactly. So you read a piece about 9 signs that your relationship is dying, right? Can you share the 9 signs?
First one is I don't want to come home. It's actually better for me to stay at work or do whatever rather than come home. So I don't really want to be at home. Facebook is more inviting than listening to my partner. Yeah, having a drink is more exciting than being with my partner. Or the only way I can tolerate my partner is to have a drink. Or the only way I can have sex with my partner is I have to be drunk. They're pretty big warning signs. The other thing is that I find that other people are more interesting to talk to, or I feel I'm attracted to other people rather than my partner. They're all the signs that your relationship is dying. Our bottom line is that anything or everything is better to be doing or be with rather than being home with my partner. That's the overall theme of it.
So we did an episode on love languages and, you know, the book by Dr. Chapman. And
yes,
one of the things he really talks about is this, we all sort of knew it before the book anyway, but there's a honeymoon phase, you know, when you get married, there's the honeymoon phase. Then after the post-honeymoon is where reality hits, and then you realize, okay, you're in a routine now. And that's kind of where a lot of couples go through this phase of, do I still love them? Where's all the passion gone? Where's the fire? We're not having as much sex anymore. Like you say, maybe it's just more interesting for me to get onto Facebook rather than to talk to my wife. Like, what are some of the observations you've had over the years around that? And is it that we're not realistic about the routine phase, or what's going on there that we can really address to keep the passion alive, I suppose?
Well, I guess I'm going to be a bit controversial here. In my opinion, the biggest problem is that we watch Hollywood or read Women's Weekly or Woman's Day or New Idea too much. Why am I saying that? Here's the thing. If I don't feel wobbly at the knees when you walk into the room, or my heart doesn't skip a bump, then that means we're drifting apart and it's time to go and find someone else. That's what Hollywood does. You look at most of the Hollywood actors. That's how they run their lives. That's how movies are. It's all about happy ever after. That's not real world. Real world is that life is tough. And it does get tough at times. Doesn't mean it's impossible tough, but it does get tough. And because we're in a throwaway society, we don't fix anything. We toss, oh, my phone's working. Oh, it's not working now. I'll just go and get a new one. And it's about instant coffee, instant fix. And I think that, in my opinion, we spend too much time looking for all the good stuff and forgetting what we've already got. The way I turn a long-term relationship is this. After a while, it's like that favourite pair of shoes or jacket. You put it on and you go, oh, it looks really daggy, and it might be still just hanging together, but you put it on and it's got happy memories attached to it, and it feels comfortable because you've worn it in. You've also worn it out, but you've worn it in. A good relationship is like that. I feel comfortable with you. It's just nice. Yeah, I haven't got the romantic, oh, my God, let's get in the bed now. It's just I'm really comfortable with you and I like hanging around with you. The danger of that is that we get too comfortable and we get lazy. So I start taking you for granted. I know that you like doing X, Y, Z, but I just go, stuff it, I'm too busy today, I won't worry about it. Whereas when you first meet, you are making sure your teeth are clean, you've got underarm deodorant on, you know, all that. Yes, exactly. You're doing all that stuff. But after a while, we get lazy, we don't do it. I don't have to win you anymore. I don't have to prove to you that I'm worth you talking to me. And that's what happens. We get lazy. And I think we need to, I mean, I don't like Valentine's Day because of the commercialisation, but I think it's really good to have one day a year where we actually go, you know, seriously, I love you. Thank you for being in my life. Let's celebrate our love. I like Valentine's Day from that way, not all the commercial tied to it, but I think every day should be Valentine's Day in my opinion. But it's just the thing, you get in the habit of just doing the same. You get in your routine, and if you bring little people into it, have a couple of kids, your focus has to be on your kids because, frankly, kids, when babies are born, they're absolutely useless. They can't do anything except crap and eat and yell, and that's all they can do. But the thing is, they need an adult, i.e. mum and dad, to look after them. And even when they're 5 or 6 or 10 or 11, they still need a mum and a dad. That places huge pressure on relationships. It just drains you. The last thing you want to do is look at, I put so much time into the kids this day. You know, really? Oh, yeah, hey, how you going? Yeah. Oh, next minute I'm asleep because I'm absolutely had it from the day. So you don't get any quality time. You're certainly not getting quantity time like when you first met, but you don't even get quality time. When you do, it's just snatches between when you're awake.
Yeah. Do you have a question on that?
You are listening to the Founders Connect podcast, helping lifestyle entrepreneurs to grow their business online and create a happier marriage. Now back to the show.
How do you balance that out with your work as a counselor and also with your wife and your family there? What's the biggest challenge there that you have, balancing that out kind of thing?
I guess I'm married to someone whose love language is time and touch. So I work a lot of hours. That can make it hard because if your love language is, one of your love languages is time, then I want to hang around you. And my wife is a very high on, I won't say high, she's on time, but she is like that little lovesick puppy dog who just wants to hang around with her bloke.
Yep.
But her bloke's not around much. So what I try to do is I'll call her several times during the day on the phone. I don't text her much because I think that's easy. I think to ring up and say, babe, how's it going? What are you up to? You know, and if I have a client cancels an appointment and I know my wife's in town, I will just say, do you want to catch up for a coffee or something? So something, because she likes spontaneity. I'm not a spontaneous person, but she does. So I'll just say, look, let's have a meal. So we try and have at least one catch up during the week for a meal. And that's what I try to do during the day. Or I'll just slot a time in, especially if we find a couple of discount vouchers to an eating place or something or coffee or something. I'll just leave a time in my diary and say, how about Wednesday or Thursday we meet for coffee or something, and to try and meet her need. But also it takes me away from work and takes me in another space, which is really good for me self-care-wise. So that's what I try to do. It's hard, but the thing is that I don't see it as a chore, and that's the other thing is it's not a chore. For me, I do want to spend time with her. I just don't get to spend as much time with her as she would prefer. But I try and spend time with her. And if I go away for training or anything, I will try and take her with me, and we'll go down the day before and come back the day after, so she gets time to spend with me as well. So, and we tend to try and do stuff together wherever we can so that we're driving around together, so we have time just to talk in the car, which is really important for a quality time person.
We can totally relate to that because we're going through a similar thing in terms of I can get into modes where I'm really just work heavy and I want the laptop out and I want to work on the website or on the podcast, whatever it is I'm doing. And we had to navigate that, in our relationship, and had to learn how to, I guess, accept and understand not only the love languages, but also the intention. And I keep on reminding Cindy in the early days, like, I'm doing this for us. Like, it's not just, an and thing. We could just survive on me not working and just hanging out with you all day, then I'd do that. So that's my preference, right?
Dream come true.
Doesn't pay the bills. Doesn't pay the bills. So Cindy, can I tell you, I just want to jump in. Cindy, he makes a good bloke. He would make a really good bloke.
Hey, he's my bloke.
Gets in the zone and you could drop a bomb around him and he wouldn't even know it gone off. He'd make a fantastic guy. So he's normal, that's what I'm saying.
So for those who are listening to this, you talked about the signs the relationship is dying. So I'd imagine working with specifically those who are very focused, like entrepreneurs or business owners, quality time is a tough one. Like if your partner is a quality time person, what kind of advice could you offer just around having the conversation? Because I think that's something that people maybe don't know how to do, or they're worried about having that real conversation about. How do you recommend people navigate that?
Well, it's simple. Just say, hey, listen, and it could be sometimes what I do is I will get my wife to drive me to work. And so we get to talk going to work, and then she'll come and pick me up, and then we get to spend time with each other coming home. And typically when she drops me off, it's usually we're going to a function that night, and hopefully my wife's won't be listening to this, but covertly it's actually I'm trying to save the price of only using 1 lot of fuel instead of 2 lots of fuel. But
hey, you're saving her money.
I think she knows.
yeah, she already knows, yeah. But I guess it's trying to find things that you can do together. But it's having the conversation. Look, hey, listen, can we catch up during the week? How about I drop off it? And sometimes I'll actually go to her workplace and I'll just rock up and take her out for lunch. And all the women in the place go, oh, my God, I wish my bloke would do that.
Exactly, isn't it?
So it's that sort of thing, you know. So I like doing that because it just shows I'm making a statement. This is my lady, back off everyone else, but I want to publicly demonstrate that she's my lady. Yeah. It's just stuff like that. The thing about quality time is you don't have to do it all the time. Okay, there's a loophole in it. But what you have to do is make sure that when you are together, let's say it's an hour, that it is really a good time and that the flow on from that will last for a couple of days. Whereas words of affirmation and touch, you have to do them several times a day because the effect from them doesn't last for that long.
Right.
Okay. Whereas for quality time, if you go out and have a great time together for an hour, the effect of I love you and I feel loved as a result of that activity, that can last for a couple of days.
So what's your love language, David?
Acts of service and quality time.
Oh, there you go. Same as mine, I think.
Yes. So you can relate.
Of course.
All right. So let's get on a topic that we're here to talk about, which is what are the signs that you might be in a toxic relationship?
When we first get in a relationship, and I'd say to you, hey, where are you going? And you'd say, I'm going this. Oh, okay, look, you might want to take that street because I think there's some roadworks there or whatever. And we go, isn't that really good that David's really interested in what I'm doing, where I'm going and, and all that sort of stuff, okay? But after a period of time, where does that me being interested in you, where does that become abuse? And when I've worked with mainly women, but where I've worked with women who've been in abusive relationships, they can see a pattern. They can see that he was always controlling. But at first, they thought it was just the fact that he was fussing over them to make sure they were okay. But over a period of time, what they realised is that this is fussing. This is actually them trying to control me. Hey, listen, you're struggling to find work. I know somewhere where you can work. A couple of my friends work there. And so I get you working there. That's so I can spy on you. My friends tell me what you're up to or not up to. So having someone who is always questioning what you're up to and where you're going and what you're doing and what you're not doing, that's not saying it's a toxic relationship, but it's one indicator. The other one is actions speak louder than words. If I say I love you, so what? Because if I don't back that up by mowing the lawn or taking the rubbish out or giving you a kiss or whatever, if I don't follow it up with an action, then my words are fake. They're not right. So one of the common traits of being in a toxic relationship, you will get a lot of words, but not much action, not positive action or encouraging action. Another one is, and this is a really good sign, is where your partner only ever tells you what you're doing wrong. Oh. And so they never tell you what you're doing right. They just say, Cindy, that's so terrible. I don't know why you do that sort of stuff. But if you go, well, David may be right. So next time Cindy does it better to the standard that she thinks that David wants, and I still find something wrong with it, say, you should have done it in half the time or whatever. So that's another sign, is that the other person never says anything good about you. They're always putting you down.
Yeah.
And the other one is being told constantly, you need to go and see a counsellor. There's something wrong with you. You're mental. You're a psycho. So often in toxic relationships, The abuser is telling the other person there's something wrong with you, you need to get yourself sorted out and all that sort of stuff. And, trying to tell them that sort of stuff. And there's another thing that abusers, they don't do it all the time, but one common thing that abusers do is called gaslighting.
What's that?
So gaslighting is where I would hold up 4 fingers to you and say, how many fingers have I got? And you say 4. No, there's only 3. There's 3 fingers there. And then I hold up 3 fingers. How many's there? You say 3. No, there's 4. And so what I do is I start brainwashing you, getting you to agree to things or see things in a way that you normally wouldn't have. So gaslighting is just getting people to believe in something or agree to something that isn't right, that they normally wouldn't.
Can we sort of put a practical example behind that? Is that something like you turn your partner against your family member or something like that?
Yes, that's a good example. You want to be careful of your mother because, and I start feeding little bits into you. Yeah, exactly. And I start isolating you from them.
Yeah.
And so, see, I told you they're a fruitcake. You should have listened to me. Oh, maybe David knows something after all. And so slowly but surely I start isolating you from your family and your friends. Friends is usually the first one that they isolate you from. So typically a male will isolate you from all your male friends and then it'll be your female friends. Or if it's a woman trying to using a guy, it'll be isolate him from his girlfriends and then female friends and that sort of stuff. So they slowly but surely find that they don't see anybody anymore and you only hang out with his friends, that sort of stuff.
So why is that a problem, David? Like some people like to spend just time with their spouse. Like why is being isolated from friends and family an issue?
It's when that's the only person you ever spend time with. You're actually not allowed to spend time. You're not allowed to talk to your mother. You're not allowed to spend time with your brother or sister or whatever, or friends. You're not allowed to go out. You actually can only spend time with me. And if I'm not going to that party, you can't come with me. It's about control. It doesn't look like control at the start. For most people in a toxic relationship, they won't know that it's toxic until it's crossed the line to where it's become very toxic. It's very subtle. Rarely does this stuff happen overnight. It happens gradually. I've seen it a few times where it has happened overnight, but typically it takes months or years for it to happen.
So, David, is this kind of like similar to brainwashing in a way?
Yeah, it is.
It is?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah. So gaslighting is just trying to make people think they're crazy, they're losing it, that I actually need you in my life because you're the only one who seems to have it together. Brainwashing is a deliberate act to get people to believe something else. So gaslighting is just it's sort of brainwashing, but it's just making people crazy. Brainwashing is actually trying to get people to do things differently, say or believe things different. Gaslighting is just keeping them in that crazy state that I haven't got a clue where I'm coming, going and gone state.
So how do people get themselves into the situation where they're in that state? Like how do you not know that that's happening to you? And I'm curious as to why we hear of, for example, women who get into relationships where they're constantly beaten by their partners and deal with physical abuse or sexual abuse, but they keep staying in those relationships. What's driving that? Or how do people get in those relationships in the first place?
Sometimes they've had a history of dodgy relationships and they said to the current person they're with, they said, listen, I was cheated on in a previous relationship. I was pushed around or yelled at. This is not going to happen this time around. Yet that won't happen. And it doesn't for a while, but then it gradually starts to come back in. Sometimes they haven't had a very good relationship with, woman hasn't had a good relationship with their dad, or their dad was a pretty dodgy sort of person, or for a male, their mum wasn't a really good person. That can have an effect. Sometimes the dodgy guys actually are the only people who ever have interest in me. 3 mates of mine did an experiment when we were 18. That's a long, long time ago.
Wow.
And they went to a nightclub and they went and interviewed all these girls because what they're trying to work out is why is the sleaze guys, the guys you just wouldn't want to be with, how come they always walked home with all the good-looking women? And what they realised is that good-looking blokes would go, you know, she's so good-looking, she won't want anything to do with someone like me. So there's no point in even asking her out for a dance because she won't want to dance with someone like me because she just thinks I'm a loser. The guys who, the dodgy guys, they just worked on an average. They knew that for every 10 women they ask out, 9 are going to say no, but 1 will say yes. And so if you're a really nice girl And if you only have the dodgy guys asking you out, the guys that you want to ask you out, they don't go near you. You just think, well, obviously they think I'm no good. But this guy is always nice to me, so I just go out with him and I eventually settle for second best because the better guys don't come near me. And that's because the better guys think that they haven't got a chance. So there's no point in me trying to make an effort. And that's how it often happens. It's just the guys, the abusers, have very silver tongues. They are very good at building connection with women and they're very good at what they do. I mean, how does a guy have multiple affairs and he's still married? You know, how does that happen? I mean, and I look at serial guys who have affairs after affair after affair. They got the gift of the gab. They are very good at connecting with women.
There's a lot of examples from the men being the perpetrator or whatever it may be. Have you read of or seen instances where the woman is actually the one who's in that power position?
Yeah, certainly. I've seen it quite a few times, mainly women. I've probably seen about a quarter of the people I've seen in toxic relationships have been male. And the biggest problem they have is trying to convince the authorities that she's actually toxic because the system is biased towards women. And that's for very good reasons because the majority of abusers are male. Okay. And I totally get that being a male. But when it's a female abuser, the system doesn't have really a process for that. Maybe in big cities they do, but here in a small regional town, we have a lot of supports for women who have been abused. You know, we have refuges for them. There's nothing like that for men in regional Queensland that I'm aware of. And so the thing is, why would a male, so thinking about it from a male perspective, why would a male go around saying, well, my wife is bashing me up? Very few men are going to admit to that.
Yeah.
And so it's a sense of shame. And so men just sit there and they endure some pretty toxic stuff. I've seen some horrific stuff done mentally to men. Unbelievable. I remember two guys I worked with, even though their ex was being investigated by child safety because of the abuse to kids. Both these two cases, the ex was able to turn it back on the guy and he was just abused again. Unbelievable how they could do that because the authorities were biased to her. And they told some very convincing stories. And I totally get why that is. Like I said before, to all the feminists out there listening to this, I totally get that the majority of abuse is done by men, full stop. But what about the small percentage of men that are abused by women? What do we do about that? We don't really do much about that in our society.
I think that's really a key point here. And I love that you named the business Shining Light because it's actually, putting this awareness, on these issues. And yeah, it's not common for a guy to say, well, this woman beat me up physically, but there's a lot of research coming out now and stuff around mental trauma, emotional trauma, really get messed up psychologically. And Australia has a very high male suicide rate.
Yep.
So there's really challenging stuff going on.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You are listening to the Founders Connect podcast, helping lifestyle entrepreneurs to grow their business online and create a happier marriage. Now back to the show.
So how to get out of this toxic relationship? What's some ways to do that?
Well, the easiest is to end it, but that's easier said than done. Look, I've seen some people have ended up in hospital several times with broken nose, cheekbone, ribs, and even then they will go back to the toxic relationship. What I found is that I believe that women are very, very loyal to their blokes. And the loyalty is the thing that actually probably hurts them the most because they want to be with this person. And sometimes the relationship is in a good spot. But you get to a point where you have to go, I can't do this. So for some women, it's because I've just been hit once too many times. My kids have been yelled at once too many times. It's that sort of stuff. Or a person I spoke to this morning there, my ex used to get the dinner plates and just throw them against the wall. Never ever hit me. Never ever said anything to me and said, you're a whatever. All he would do is pick up a plate and throw it. I knew I had to do the right thing when he did that. He didn't have to tell me why he was doing it. I just knew that I was in trouble. So it can be as simple as that. So I guess it's just when you get to the point you suddenly realise, there's something not right here. He says that he loves me. She said that she loves me, but yet the actions. So that's where that actions speak louder than words, okay? Mm-hmm. Because the thing is, if I'm doing nice stuff for you, I don't need to say I love you as much, okay? Words are good. Women still, especially if there's words of affirmation, you still need to be saying that stuff. But it's the actions. What are the actions of my partner? What do my actions demonstrate? And what happens when our friends or our parents or his workmates are around, or my workmates are around? Does their behaviour change? Now, my behaviour changes a little bit when I'm with my wife's workmates. I'm probably a little bit more polite than that. But, I mean, it's not a major change. But what's the difference when there's no one else around versus to when we're at a party? What is the difference? At the party, he's big noting himself, saying how good he is, and when we're back home, he's telling me I'm trash.
Yeah.
So hopefully, not everyone, but hopefully you've got some really good friends around you who go, hey, listen, just wondering what's going on between you two guys. I've seen some stuff happening, and they will probably be in denial for a while, but somewhere along the line, you have to draw a line in the sand and go, I can't take this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. This is not good for me, not good for the kids. I'm sick of getting bashed up. I'm sick of having to give you all my money and then you go and shoot it up with heroin or speed, or you drink it all down the pub, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Now, toxic relationships, they're not only limited to romantic relationships. What if the toxic relationship is in your family or is with your colleagues at work? How do you deal in those scenarios? Because I know you do some work just outside of personal relationships in the professional environment. So what's your advice around that?
Well, toxic family relationships are probably not as hard to deal with. They're still not any pleasant. The thing is, you don't have to live with them. What I say to people who are in toxic families, when you don't meet at anybody's house for a meal, because that's going to end up in a brawl some way, what I say is go to a place where they have a buffet and try and get a table in the middle of the restaurant. And so it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. So when you sit down at the table, you sit down, and then when you talk for 5-10 minutes, then get up and get some food. Don't fill your plate up with food. Just put a bit of food on it. Come back, sit down, and then after another 5-10 minutes, you say, my plate's empty. I better go and get something else to eat. So therefore, in the hour and a half you're there in that restaurant, you're forever going up and getting food. Because when you're at an all-you-eat buffet, everyone knows that you're going to be going backwards and forwards. I just say to people, don't fill your plate up like a mountain. Just put a couple of handfuls of food on it. And so therefore you go backwards and forwards. And the other reason being in a public place, unless you've got the family from hell, as a rule, most people, most of the time, will behave themselves when they're in a public place.
Definitely.
Okay? That's how you deal with toxic families. One good tip for toxic families. At work, that can be really hard, especially if the abuser or the bully is your boss. That's hard, but that's probably a topic for another time because that's a really complicated one, to be frank. Yeah.
We will get people to look at your website and follow up with you on that one.
Yeah. Yep.
So what's your best tip for building sexual intimacy with your partner?
If you're male, you need to start prepping your wife for sex 5 minutes after the last time you had sex. Simple as that.
There you go.
Don't expect people to come in and say, how about it? Doesn't work like that. Somewhere along the line, it could be 5 years' time, could be 10 years' time, could be 20 years' time. She's going to go, I'm over it. I'm not going to do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So to men, I need to say, what I want to say to you is that just because you think you're the world's greatest lover, why would your wife want to have sex with you? You've got to give her reasons to have sex with you. She needs to feel loved and appreciated, okay? And I think that if men did that, intimacy wouldn't be quite as issue. For women, look, cut us some slack. We're blokes. We are thick as bricks some days. We are a bit slow. And occasionally it is really good for women if you initiate sex. I know that for a lot of women, they feel uncomfortable doing that. But can I tell you, for most men, when their lady goes, hey, big fella, over here now, it's like, oh, really? Oh, blokes like that. Blokes like being turned on by their lady.
Yeah, I mean, that's coming back to the spontaneity. That's huge.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, we're going to wrap up with a couple of questions here. David, what's one book or resource that has made a significant impact on what you do and on your life or your business?
One book, geez. I've read a lot of books in my day. I think Stephen Covey's book, The Principles, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, because that resonates with me, all that stuff. Some of these principles are cliche in some way, but there's a lot of wisdom in them. And I actually did years and years ago, there was a 3-day workshop where we spent 3 days exploring his principles for life. And that was a really game changer for me when I did that. So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, good reference, that one. Now you've created is that an event? It's called How to Rescue a Relationship Broken by Infidelity in 5 Practical Steps. What's that about?
That's a webinar. So I've seen a lot of people with infidelity this year, and I've seen a lot of businesses destroyed by infidelity, not just the owners having an affair with the employee or just the owner having an affair with someone else, but also employees engaging workplace romances. I've seen a lot of businesses come close to going under because of that. And I decided to do this webinar to try and get the word out there. I've had 20 couples who have done counselling with me. They have viewed the webinar and they say the content is really, really good. In fact, anyone that comes in now and says they've been infidelity in their relationship, I just get them to watch the webinar. So I know the content's good. In fact, the content, and I'll go on a limb here, in my opinion, the content is so good. If you're clever enough, you actually don't even need to buy the self-help program that I'm selling at the end of the webinar. That's how good the information is, in my opinion. So maybe I'm doing myself out of making a sale, but I think the content's pretty good. It's on the money. Every couple that's watched it, it's helped them to decide whether they stay together or end their relationship because of infidelity. It's helped them get clarity on what they can do or not do. And so it's very, very good content.
So who's the webinar for?
Webinar is for anybody whose relationship has been affected by infidelity, or for somebody whose friend or sister or sibling has been affected by infidelity, or you're somebody there who's just interested in, well, what's the go about infidelity? What's it all about? I mean, anybody who has an interest in infidelity or those who've been directly affected or secondary affected by infidelity, it would be really good for people. There's a lot of good content there. It's a lot of good information, and you'll learn a lot of stuff. I mean, I share some statistics about infidelity, but I just give people a bit of a process, and it's about 5 practical tips. That's what it's about, 5 practical tips to rescue a relationship broken by infidelity.
Fantastic. Okay, and where can people access that webinar?
They can go to my website, findinglight.com.au, and there's a lead magnet on the front page about 7 things to avoid when infidelity has been discovered. Mm-hmm. You'd be amazed at things that people do when they find out their partner's having an affair, and by the time they come to see me 2 or 3 weeks later or 2 or 3 months after the affair's been discovered, I have to deal with the fallout of some of these things. So I've actually got a lead magnet there saying, look, if nothing else, get the lead magnet, have a look at that, and that'll help you not to let it become a bigger explosion than it already is. And then as a result of the lead book, that'll take you straight through to the webinar. So, yeah.
Fantastic. All right.
So after all said and done, what do you want to be remembered by, David?
That I was somebody I was a nonconformist, and I tried to make the world a better place.
Right there, specifically to relationships or just in general?
The way you live your life.
Just the way I live my life. I like to be different, but I want to be remembered that I made the world a better place. Maybe only one in a couple of people's lives, but it doesn't matter. It's like the little kid throwing the starfish out in the ocean. The old guy says, you wasted your time. He bent down, picked up the starfish, threw it, and he said, well, I made a difference in that one's life. That's how I look at it.
Amazing story to end that. Thank you so much, David. We wanted to acknowledge you for all the wonderful work you're doing in the world and for sharing your insights today with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
All right, so everyone else, head along to David's website. We're going to share that in the show notes, and you can go and check out his guides on there as well and join the webinar if that's something that would help you and your relationships or someone in your world. So thank you so much, and we will see you guys on the next episode. So that was our interview with relationship expert and counsellor David Lawson. Cindy, what did you think? What did you learn?
It's quite interesting how he said some of the symptoms for a toxic relationship are, because I think for me, or what I saw is that we do a tiny bit of that sometimes, but the thing that he stresses is that the level of comfort you have with that kind of thing put upon you. And so that was something that I took away, that you need to be self-aware and just be in control of your own decisions.
Yeah, that's a really big distinction between, like, really toxic is about control. Like, it's really about one partner trying to control the other partner, which is why I asked that question about, well, what if you just like spending time with your partner, and that's the thing that you guys do all the time, like we do. We have our date days, and we also obviously run a business together, so we spend a lot of time together. But we also understand the importance of having me days, and spending time with our family members, or sometimes for me, I'm with my friends sometimes, and you know, like do that as well. So there's a difference between choosing to spend time together and one person saying, no, you can only spend time with me.
Yes.
Right. That's really what toxic
is
all about. I'm very interested. We didn't get a chance to go into that with David, but I'm interested in if he works with the person who's actually the control person, right? And what advice he would give to that person. You know, what kind of work would they do around that? Like, is it possible that that person who is the controller not aware that they're being the controller?
I would imagine that would be the case, and it seems, I think, back to the inner matrix of how they were brought up as when they were in the womb to all the way to an age that you kind of have your cemented beliefs.
Yes.
So I believe that's where it might stem from.
Okay, so we'll go into the inner matrix in another episode, because that's a whole new conversation that we haven't had yet.
That's a big topic.
So my takeaway from the conversation with David is I really like the 9 signs your relationship is dying. I think we covered 6. David talked about 6 of them. We'll share the blog post that he wrote. You know, it's a while ago now that he wrote it, but there are some things on here like we only argue. I mean, that's a sign that your relationship is not in a good place. And there's something that I observe. We had a conversation about this a while back where I said, you know, I have some friends who they just argue all the time. And they do it in a, sometimes it seems like a playful manner.
Yeah.
But when the majority of your conversation is just very competitive and very much arguing, then that's not a really... Now, look, they're still together, so I think it's probably healthy, and they do have healthy conversations. I just think when you're in a situation where you're constantly like competing and challenging each other, and not in a good way, putting each other down, like I think that's a red flag.
Yeah, definitely a big red flag, because if you keep on putting someone else's down, you know, their self-esteem comes into depression, all that stuff. And, you know, it's really hard for them to even be happy with anybody. Yeah.
And then a couple of other ones that he didn't mention was like this one, number 8 here is you have sex to keep your partner happy. Like, that's dangerous.
Isn't it?
Yeah, like
you
want to have sex with your partner. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a desire for you.
Different.
That's a good thing. Like, if you don't have that desire and you're only doing it just to shut them up, that intention and the motivation is very different.
Yes, indeed.
And this last one here is, number 9 is you avoid receiving hugs from your partner.
Wow, that's really something I've never really thought about. And it's quite very simple, that one. So if you try to hug your partner and your partner don't want to hug you, you know there's a big problem there.
Yeah, especially
so try it now.
So what David wrote here is, you know, once you like your partner's hugs or kisses, now they repel you. If I am a huggy person and I don't get hugs, that's a sign I'm not loved. Or if I hate their hugs, it's a sign I'm disconnected from my partner. So now, look, there are people out there who are not big on hugs, and that's okay. But I think this comes back to the actions, what David was talking about in terms of actions speak louder than words. If you know your partner is a hugger and they love that physical, you know, and they do the languages test and they understand that they're a physical touch person, and your spouse or your partner is avoiding all physical touch, that is a huge red flag and something to look at.
Definitely.
Okay, well, that's it for our interview with David. I think, you know, there's so much more that we can talk about with David. We're also going to be bringing on other relationship experts and counsellors and therapists. There's so much more we can dig into. If you have any questions about relationships, marriage, even founder relationships, if you're in a co-founder relationship with your, you know, your co-business owner, please send us your questions, because we will endeavour to have those answered for you.
Exactly. See you then. Are you thinking about leaving your job, taking control of your own destiny, and turning your passion and experience into a side hustle or full-time business? Well, check out our new Corporate Escape Plan PDF guide.
It's free, and you will learn the top 10 challenges for new entrepreneurs and what you can do to overcome them. Just head over to foundersconnect.co/escape to grab the free checklist now.
Yeah, do it.
In our next episode, we're asking, is marriage necessary and is it forever?
Thanks for tuning in, and remember to live passionately,
purposefully,
and confidently. Till next time, ciao.